Hi everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today I'm showing you a very special, out of the ordinary pancake recipe. We make a lot of pancakes around here and I was kind of getting bored, and so this is like a fun spin on lemon ricotta pancakes where I add a bunch of beaten egg white and they get kind of souffled, and it's really kind of an interpretation of like a Japanese souffle pancake. They get like really tall and light and like a cloud mixed with the lemon ricotta. They're really good. They're not too sweet, but they're so light and tender it kind of feels like dessert. But it's not. I'm gonna show you how to make them. Whenever you're doing anything that's souffled, you have to always kind of balance out the lightness from the egg whites with a certain amount of structure so it can support the kind of rise and expansion of the batter as it cooks. You've probably seen Japanese style pancakes, like wobbly, super tall. I really wanted something that had that kind of incredible lightness, but had also the richness of like a lemon ricotta pancake, which are so delicious. So that's what I'm doing here. And this is one I've tweaked a few times. I've made them. They've always turned out delicious, but sometimes they've like lost a little bit of volume. And so it's all about kind of getting the right amount of flour, the right amount of egg whites. And you do need a couple different bowls and a mixer for the egg whites, but they do come together fast. For the ingredients, I have a little bit of all-purpose flour. This is 1 cup of whole milk ricotta that I strained. The first couple times I made them, I didn't strain it, and the extra liquid doesn't help. So I strained it for literally like an hour or 2, and that's it. Cornstarch. Cornstarch helps to add to the setting power so that it maintains that structure so that they stay nice and tall and light. A little kosher salt, a little baking powder, a small amount, just 2 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter. I have more butter here for the pan for cooking. 5 large eggs, room temp, a little bit of cream of tartar, and about a 1/4 cup of sugar that I'm going to use to beat the egg whites. It's like a lightly sweet recipe, not too sweet, and then some vanilla extract. For special equipment, you are going to want to use a hand mixer at a minimum. It's just a lot to beat 5 egg whites by hand, so that's really helpful. You'll need a few different bowls. I have a spatula for folding, a whisk. You know, one thing I don't have out that I need to get, I'm going to actually sift the flour. And so I'm gonna get like a mesh strainer. And then most importantly, I have a 10-inch non-stick skillet. Anything made with egg whites are very sticky, like they wanna stick to everything. And so I'm using the Made in ceramic clad 10-inch skillet that like releases really nice and clean. And I'm not using ring molds. Oftentimes you'll see the Japanese pancakes made in ring molds. So they're like this perfect cylinder. These are just freeform because it's like we're trying to keep it kind of casual. And I don't actually even have ring molds to cook these in. I'm gonna use a scoop for portioning them. It's just the easiest way to like transfer the batter. You don't need a scoop. You could just use like a big spoon. Before I get into the recipe, I want to thank our friends at Made In for sponsoring this episode. I have been working with Made In almost since the inception of the channel, and I have been waiting years for them to come out with a nonstick line, and they wanted to wait until they got it right, but now you can get their ceramic clad cookware. So it has a ceramic coating, but it is made with Made In's proprietary 5-ply construction stainless. So it can go in the oven up to 550 Fahrenheit. It can do induction, gas, electric, and I love it because the ceramic coating is made without harmful chemicals. It's super durable compared to other brands of nonstick cookware, and I just love having it at home for pancakes, for like all of my like egg white heavy recipes, omelets, all of that. And it's just a great cookware line. I have recommended it to so many friends and family and they all love it. To check out the ceramic clad line and for all of my favorite cookware from Made In, you can go to the link in the description below and you can get a discount on your order. And now back to the recipe. So I actually need 3 different bowls for this part. It's a little annoying, but I think it's worth it. It's always worth it. I'm going to start by mixing together my dry ingredients. So this is just my flour. This is some baking powder. So even though all the lightness is coming from the egg whites, I'm still giving it like an extra little push from baking powder. Some kosher salt. And now I want to sift this. And I'm going to sift it back into this small bowl. Okay, so just gonna get all this mixed together. This is just gonna take out any lumps and help it incorporate. Whenever you're incorporating flour into like a egg white lightened mixture, you do want to sift it because it's just, even if it's not lumpy to begin with, it really easily forms lumps on this like light, fluffy mixture. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate my eggs. So I'm using 5 large eggs, which is a lot. But that's because so much of the structure of this comes from the eggs. So I'm going to separate my whites into the larger bowl and make sure that that's a nice clean bowl because we're going to whip them. So you don't want any fat in it. And generally speaking, you don't want to use plastic. Plastic maintains like a greasy residue even after it's been washed. And it just makes it so that the egg whites do not whip as tall in plastic. So metal or glass is better. All right, so the yolks are going to go in here. So we're basically setting this up where we have like wet, dry, and then egg whites. And we're going to combine everything in here. So to my egg yolks, I'm going to add, oh, I forgot to add, oops, hold on. The cornstarch goes into my dry. So that's sifted in. So now we're going to combine the other wet ingredients in here. I'm going to add my 1 cup of strained ricotta. I didn't go crazy, like it didn't go overnight. I really just strained it for an hour or 2. Enough to get like you know how sometimes like in a package of ricotta you take off the plastic and there's like a little water pooling on the surface? Enough to kind of get out that amount of excess water. All right, and then I'm going to add my 2 tablespoons of melted butter. And this recipe really works best when everything is room temp. So I'm going to whisk this together. And I've added a little bit of butter for richness, but in general, when you're doing a recipe lightened by egg whites, fat can kind of work against you. Fat will cause egg foam to deflate. So I'm going to take some other measures to make sure the egg foam is really stable. So I'm going to add a little cream of tartar to the egg whites. That is a stabilizer. It's an acid, stuff like that. So I'm going to whisk this until there's no more lumps. And then into this, I'm going to grate the zest of 1 lemon. So I'm using a microplane for a sort of a very finely grated zest. You could do orange. I made a version of these with orange that were delicious. This is, I think, a great recipe for like dark days of winter, which we're in. It's very light and kind of, I don't know, there's some other recipe that feels cheerful in a nice way, especially with the lemon zest, and also it's citrus season, so why not? But at least, you guys, it's not totally dark at 5. I mean, spring's a long way away, but at least I'm not dealing with total darkness. That's really what I care about. Okay, obviously save the lemon for something else. I'm gonna whisk that in. And now I'm gonna also add like 2 teaspoons or so of vanilla extract. So now I have my wet, I have my dry. I'm going to start to whip my egg whites. These are my 5 large egg whites. I'm gonna add my 1/4 cup of sugar, and everything goes in now. It's not like a gradually add. And I found that when you add sugar from the very beginning, when you're whipping egg whites, you get a finer foam, like smaller bubbles and more uniform and more stable. So that's actually gonna help us here. So I'm gonna add just a pinch of cream of tartar. In culinary school, they would say a point, like just a nice tip of.
But you did 2.
I did 2. So now we are going to start to whip this. I feel like this is not a weekday morning kind of thing because it's like 3 bowls and a mixer, but it would be, to me, it's like not as much work as making waffles in the morning on a Sunday or a Saturday. So these are at room temperature, so they're gonna whip pretty easily. The first thing you wanna do when you're whipping egg whites is go on like a medium low just to break everything up. And then once they start to get a little foamy and go from kind of like yellow translucent to white, that's when you can increase the speed. And we want to take these to somewhere between medium peaks and firm. More on the firm side, because the firmer it is, the more structure it's going to give the batter. Okay, so you can see that the egg whites are starting to hold the trail of the whisk. So I'm getting close. And they're glossy, but they're getting a little bit of like that satin finish where it's starting to go a little matte, so that's also how you know. So let's take a look at this egg texture. Pretty good. I mean, I'm probably on the firm side. You don't want to go to the point where they start to get really matte and look dry, because then they're going to be hard to incorporate. But also that sugar content that we've added, that also helps to keep the egg whites supple and smooth, even when they're pretty stiff. Okay, so I'm done with the mixer. As I put together my batter, I'm gonna start preheating my pan. One of the keys to cooking this style of pancake is actually a very long, gentle, slow cook. They sort of steam, and I'm gonna cover them and use a lid. So I'm gonna get this on low.
Do they ever grow so tall they touch the top of the pan?
Not mine. The real Japanese pancakes will get like super tall, but like mine are not. This is a hybrid. So we take a Japanese pancake and a lemon ricotta pancake. Mine are in the middle. So I'm gonna basically take half of my dry ingredients and sift them over. I'm not doing all the dry ingredients because if I were to add all the dry, it would make this mixture so thick that I would have a really hard time incorporating the whites. So I'm doing half of the dry, then about a third of the whites. I'm gonna fold this in. You always wanna fold with egg whites because we wanna maintain that air, that airiness. All right, now the rest of the dry. This method of mixing, sort of each one progressively, it just produces a much smoother batter. So I'm gonna fold that in. And when most of the flour mixture disappears, not quite all, then I'm gonna add the next third or half of the remaining egg whites. Fold this in. Could I be using a bigger bowl? Yes. Now the remaining egg whites, what I should really do, last addition of egg whites. It's better to actually leave a couple streaks and to like make sure you're not over mixing. So it doesn't have to be 100% incorporated.
What would happen if it did overmix?
Over mixing means you're just losing some of the air and it's deflating a little bit. It's like not the end of the world. They're still gonna taste delicious.
But they won't pop.
They won't be quite as light. All right, this looks great. You can see it's like a super light and airy batter. Now we're gonna get to cooking. All right, so we have the batter. We have our butter for greasing. I'm gonna grab the lid. So we're ready to start cooking. I'm gonna get a little bit of butter down. This is like not even a half a tablespoon, just enough to coat the pan. This recipe is like other pancake recipes where the first batch is never the good batch. It's always like about figuring out the heat. I turned it up a little bit just to make sure like there's heat in the pan. All right, so I'm gonna get the first batch in. I can fit 4 in one pan. So a kind of gently heaping scoop. And because I'm not using ring molds, these will spread as they cook. The ring molds are there to like maximize the height, keeps the sides in, so they rise only up, but these are gonna rise out a little bit. So now that we've added them, I'm gonna cover them. It's very important that you cook these on the first side until the surface looks matte. Like if you touched it, the batter would not come off on your finger like that. So that's gonna take like solid 5 minutes. These actually take quite a while to cook. So we'll come back in a few minutes. You can kind of check on them. Another helpful thing is you could add a little bit of water to the pan. Like I might do that when I come halfway through cooking, and that's gonna help them to steam and cook all the way through, because it is that slow cooking all the way through that's gonna help them maintain all of that like airy texture and that height. On a gas range, you would be on like the lowest temperature. And just for context, I was making these when I was testing on my induction. The levels are 1 through 9. 1 is like barely warm. I was on like a 2 or a 3 a little bit. I would turn it back up to 4 to preheat it a little bit and then back down to 3 or 2. So pretty, very, very low. All right, I did sort of forget what was going on and got distracted, but I think we're good. I turned it up a little bit. One of the signs that you know that your pan is too hot is if your butter starts to brown, then turn it down. So let's take a look. I think they could honestly be a little bit more done. They're very close. You see that they're basically set on top. I'm just gonna turn it up a little bit and then we're gonna flip. You want them done basically like 80 to 90% cooked through on the first side before you flip. I didn't add any water on this batch, but I maybe I will on the next one. It does help them cook through. All right, I'm gonna flip. Yes, this is a metal spatula. No, you do not wanna use metal on a nonstick, but it's kind of my only option, and I'm gonna be extremely careful. Just don't have a silicone or wood spatula. I will get one. All right, so we're gonna flip. Generally, the first side should be a little bit browned. Like these are pretty pale. So it's like, again, the first batch is just kind of like never the good one. So I'm gonna turn up my heat a little bit. And then they're gonna cook again on the second side covered still for a few minutes, just so that everything is fully set. All right, let's take out our first batch. Nice and fluffy. So these have nice height, but we definitely wanna get a little more browning on them just so that they look more appetizing. And I have the heat back up on more of like a medium. And that is because I think it helps to have it nicely preheated. And then once the pancakes are in, you can turn the heat down. Second batch is gonna go in. In using the 10-inch pan and this size scoop, you get like basically 3 batches of 4, more or less. All right, now I'm gonna add a little water to this just to help that steaming. And I'm not spraying the batter directly because I obviously don't wanna make them wet. And I'm gonna turn the heat back down to low. You know that's like a thing how I'm bad at flipping stuff, right? Well, it's still true. I think definitely adding the water helps, just to make sure they're steaming and cooking through. And we'll come back and we'll taste them when they're all cooked. Definitely the final batch looks the best. I'm gonna get these out. They're so tall and fluffy. Look how good they look, right? All right, let's get these plated up. We're gonna taste them.
I like how yellow they look.
They're super yellow because of the egg, all the eggs. Do you see the wobble? This final batch has maintained really good height. If I were to have used a ring mold, I would get that like really dramatic height, but I'm happy just to have them freeform. They smell really good. When they're hot, it really brings out the lemon, so they really perfume. And it is a nice lemon flavor and not too sweet, so I finished it with powdered sugar, which is super delicious. I love the like very satisfying texture. They're super, super tender. Like so fluffy, like a cloud. And because they're so light, they sort of have that like dissolving quality when you eat them, which is just like you could really eat a lot of these. I don't think they need syrup. I think just the powdered sugar makes them sweet enough. They are so delicious. As a not pancake person, I'm very into these. They're pancakes, but they're not. They're just so different than your average like buttermilk pancake, which can be kind of heavy and a gut bomb. These are so light and they like dissolve when you eat them. If you are gonna make them, I highly recommend you use a nonstick pan because those egg whites are like very sticky and want to stick. And so I of course recommend the Made in ceramic clad. It's my favorite nonstick cookware, stainless clad, but with this non-toxic ceramic coating, and food just releases so easily. So I love these, and you can go to the link in the description below for more information and for a discount off of your order. So I want to thank Made In for sponsoring this episode. And in like the dark days of winter, I think it's a mood lifter to make these souffled lemon ricotta pancakes. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.